Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon. We are so happy you could join us to talk about the COVID-19 vaccine for older children between the ages of 12 to 15. We know there's lots of questions out there, and we really hope to be a good, trusted source of information for you. My name is Dr. Melanie Golombieski. I'm the Associate Medical Director here at Neighborhood Family Practice. And one of the docs on the vaccine team. I was just outside vaccinating in my flashy shirt to draw attention, just down the street at one of the congregate meal settings in our area. So please, hopefully my flashy shirt will draw you in on this webinar as well. But also want to introduce Vadi. Vadi, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Vadi Caraballo. I am the site manager at our Detroit Shoreway office. I am also the mom of a child who is looking forward to get vaccinated. And we are really excited about helping everyone get educated about the positive things about getting your children vaccinated.
Yeah. So we asked our staff, we asked our patients, we asked lots of people what some of their questions were around this vaccine. And I know, Vadi, you had some questions of your own. So we'll kind of just go through stuff. And if there's messages that you want to post or questions in the chat, let us know and we'll kind of pull those off as well.
Sure. One of the questions I had, Melanie, is my daughter's due for vaccines soon. Mm-hmm. And so is it a good idea to have her regular vaccines at the same time as she gets her Pfizer shot?
Yeah. So Pfizer is the only vaccine right now that we have FDA approved for children between the ages of 12 and 15. I suspect we'll be hearing in the coming weeks more about Moderna. They've also had some really good studies and outcomes for children from that age, showing how well the vaccine is tolerated and how the vaccine does at the job, which is, protecting us from COVID. So as we started to bring on different ages, the CDC and the vaccine companies began to think about that exact question that you have, like, I've got to get her, vaccines for school, or she, needs her HPV. Can I do it all at the same time? And the answer is yes. So we have enough information to know that it is fine to do the vaccines all together. And that goes for adults and kids. It's fine. We don't have to wait that 2-week window anymore to get another vaccine. So as she comes for her well-child check, or if she's coming in for just one of our vaccine clinics, that's, not a question we're going to, ask her, have you had a vaccine in the past 2 weeks? It's going to be fine, or, hey, did you know you could also get your HPV vaccine along with this? So it is absolutely safe. And the big question about how that's decided is that we just want to make sure that both of the vaccines will be as effective as they should when given together. And so we have enough information about that. There's been lots of people over the past several months who've had vaccines timed very close or on this, same day as their other vaccines, and it's been okay. And so, they feel comfortable saying that data now is fine to do that. Yeah, that's a good question. I know a lot of people are asking that.
Perfect. And if you have any questions, feel free to put a comment on here and we'll go over your questions. Any question, there's no dumb question out there. Ask any question whatsoever. Is it safe? One of my concerns is, here it is, another vaccine that hasn't been out a long time. How safe is this for me to give to my daughter?
So Pfizer is actually the longest study COVID vaccine, and it's been a really intense and robust study. COVID vaccines in the United States, there's been over 250 million doses given out of this vaccine. So this really represents a huge level of data and understanding about how this vaccine works, both in the laboratory sense or the science sense. So when we do trials, it's a very controlled setting. It's, everything is really timed down to even the hour in some instances. But when vaccines go out in the real world, that's the real world setting. And what we see from so much of the data coming back in this past 6 months with Pfizer is it's working in the real world setting. People are getting good immune responses. It is safe. We are following any adverse reaction or anything can get reported to a system called VAERS. And we use that we've used that for, years and years with other vaccines. So that's not anything that's new or different to the process, but people, after they get a vaccine, if something occurs, their medical provider reports it. And that's one way that the vaccine manufacturers, the CDC, all the scientists are tracking and monitoring what's happening after vaccination. And that's a really important source of information because it lets us look at the people who got vaccinated and compare them to the people who haven't been vaccinated. And a lot of times we've, heard in the news recently things about, well, this is likely with this vaccine or not, but it's really, you have to compare it to the people who haven't been vaccinated. If this stuff is happening at the same rate in people who've never been vaccinated, that's not from the vaccine. It's no different. So we know this vaccine is safe. In kids, the side effects or the immune response, I like to call it an immune response because it's the vaccine working, it's doing what it's supposed to do. It's about the same as adults. So they're experiencing the same response to the vaccine as adults, both in what they're feeling after, but also that they're getting a really strong immunity from it, a really strong protection with the antibodies. So you should expect that after the second dose, your child may have a sore arm, they might have a headache, they might feel, tired or have a fever. And kids do better with fevers than grownups. Like we get a fever and we're like, oh man, I can't. But kids, they get a fever and sometimes they're out playing and they don't even notice the difference. So, so you should expect that as a parent that they might have a side effect for 1 to 3 days after their second vaccine. Some people after their first, but most of the time it's that second dose. But then you also should feel confident that they are getting the same protection that you as an adult are getting, upwards of 95% protection for severe COVID, getting really sick, that you're in the hospital. Kids do go to the hospital with this. It's rare, but kids do get bad side effects from COVID. And, some studies are showing that maybe about 10% of kids who get COVID have long side effects, the long haul COVID that we're hearing so much about, shortness of breath, loss of smell, being really tired. So although most kids do fine, there are some kids that really suffer from COVID. And this is one way that you can protect your child, your family, the community. So it's really important.
Yeah. And I don't remember if you mentioned this, but other than Pfizer, that's the only vaccine that's available right now, right?
Correct. Yeah. The Pfizer is the only one out right now that can be offered to children between 12 and 15. And I think from what we're hearing coming from Moderna, that's going to also be an option in the future. One interesting thing about how we decrease in ages when we're rolling out a vaccine is we go in incremental stages. So here we are at 12 to 15, and then, the next approval might be 5 to 11. And then the next approval after that, might be 6 months and beyond. Moderna and Pfizer both have some studies out there for those younger kids. And the tricky part and why they're going to need some more time is, one, they're going to be way more intensive when it comes to little kids and really showing good, robust, really good data. And we're already seeing some of that come out. But the other thing is, as COVID decreases in our community, lots of adults are getting vaccinated. Now kids, these young teenagers are a really important part of community spread. So we know that they have in many instances spread it to their families. So they're a really important part. And if we're vaccinating them, we're going to see COVID go down in the community further. So we have to have more time to study it in other ages to really compare how well does this prevent COVID now that COVID is decreasing. So we have to give it more time to see those natural infections possibly occur in the unvaccinated group and things. So for the younger kids, we might hear about it more in the fall.
Is the dose that you use for the adults the same as for the kids?
This is a really common question because people believe, how is my 12-year-old going to get the same dose that I did? But it is. So many times in the children's studies, they will, change the dose a bit and see, does the half dose, what's the smallest amount of vaccine that I have to give to get the best and the most tolerated response and the response that I want to get the good immune reaction. And so for 12 to 15-year-olds, it's the same dose as the adult. The 0.5 ml in the syringe twice, 21 days apart. So it is the same for them, but we might see that be different for younger children.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering that. I'm like, how is she going to get the same dose with different weights?
Yeah.
This might be a silly question, but will this affect her having children later, or any child?
Yeah, that's a common misconception or a myth that's out there, and a lot of people worry about that, of course, as something new comes out. And it's actually a recycled myth that people, was kind of at HPV vaccines, it was the same kind of myth and version that came out. And that there's simply no scientific evidence that this is the case. Number one, we've been watching this in, women now 18 and over, 16 and over with Pfizer. We've been watching this with women for 6 months, and the fertility rate is being followed. So we're seeing that there's no difference between women unvaccinated and vaccinated women and getting pregnant. So, we're seeing that data come in real time, real fashion now. And scientifically, there's just no plausible way that this would affect fertility. There's just no sense connection in the body that would make sense that it would disrupt any future fertility issues.
Okay. She's been vaccinated before for other things and she was fine. What would you recommend we could do at home before and maybe after she gets the vaccine? One, to prepare her, and then two, does she need to be out of school the next day?
This is a really great question. I'm glad you're thinking about this because some kids are really nervous about vaccines. The young teens tend to get really nervous, but don't want to let anybody know. So, gosh, whenever we have kids in the office of this age and they've got to get their regular vaccines, we always kind of treat them like little babies because we know they're really nervous, but they don't want to say it. And, lots of us, when we get vaccines, we feel nervous. So I think it's important to talk about it with them. I think it's important to kind of make it, not entirely their decision, because this is a really important decision for a family and for the parent to help, to make. But I think that, let them know why this is important and talk about how it's beneficial to them, to the family, and to their community, and how they're really helping to end this epidemic by getting the vaccine. So I think, first of all, you can share that value, why you value the vaccine with them. And then, and I think just talking about the process that you're going to go in. If you're an NFP, it's going to feel like a medical visit with the nurse, and you'll sit down, you'll get your vaccine, and you'll wait for 15 minutes after. And like I said, a lot of kids in this age, their anxiety can get the best of them. And so we actually see, kids fainting or things like that, not with COVID vaccine, with any vaccine, because they're just, they get so nervous, they hold their breath, they work themselves up. There's a lot of anxiety. So I think anything you as a parent, your child best, anything you can do to allay that anxiety. There's some great, we'll try to chat it out later. There's some videos that are put out by really reputable hospital organizations about what this looks like for a kid, talking about that and showing videos of the process. Obviously don't show videos of people screaming or something like that, but so use a video first before you, parenting 101, make sure you know what you're showing your kid. But I think anything that your kid will really value and help them to calm down is important. After, most kids really are okay. But I think play it by ear. If your kid doesn't feel well, school is almost over. I think we're rounding the curve here in the next week or two at school. But, if the next day they just kind of chill out, they're not really doing a lot of activities. If they don't feel like it, that's fine. Let their body rest. The body's going to do the work. The vaccine's the message. The body's got to do the work. So the one thing we don't recommend is giving Tylenol or ibuprofen in preparation of feeling bad. That in kids' vaccines for other vaccines, we know it can reduce the response to the vaccine. It's not been studied in COVID, but I would say don't do that. Just kind of let's see what happens. If your child is miserable, they feel really yucky and they want some medicine at that time, then Tylenol is fine, ibuprofen is fine. But I would just kind of see how they do. And ice cream. I think ice creams or popsicles are usually good. Doctor's orders, right? Doctor's orders on that one, right? Yeah. Don't tell my kids though I said that.
One of my friends, we were having a conversation about this the other day, and her son is, I believe, 16. Has, drives, does his own things most of the time. And so she wanted to schedule him, but she has to work. So does she have to be present?
I think it depends on where you're going. So there's lots of places kids can access vaccines. There's pharmacies, there's school vaccine clinics, there's health centers like Neighborhood Family Practice. So, here at Neighborhood, we like to have parental consent. We like to know for kids under this age that mom or dad said it's okay, that they're here, and if there's going to be an issue with you as the mom or dad bringing them to that appointment, call us, let us know. We will let you know our protocol. Most of the time it's getting some consent on the phone if grandma's bringing them or something, but we like to have mom or dad here, I think, and this is also a momentous occasion, like taking part in this really awesome way to protect yourself and your community. So if mom or dad can be there, that is the number one thing. That's the best. But some school vaccine clinics have worked out different ways. So I think talk with where you're going.
Okay. And then, all right, so now we're all vaccinated, right? Once the kids get vaccinated, how soon can they take off their mask? And should they? especially if they're going to be around people who may not be vaccinated?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I have this conversation a lot with people. So the same rule applies. The vaccine's the message. Your body's got to do the work, and your body takes about 2 weeks to get that work done in making the protection. So it's 2 weeks after the second dose, you're considered fully vaccinated. So it's not immediately after your vaccine. You got to wait till you get that second dose, about 28 days after, and then 2 weeks after that. And then I think it's really, when the CDC said you can take your mask off if you're fully vaccinated, that was their guidance based on how awesome this vaccine is and how good it is at protecting us. But every family and every community has some differences to it. So, for example, in my family, my children are all under the age of 7. They cannot get the vaccine yet. So, if I had a child who was getting vaccinated, we would still behave like we have to protect that group of kids. So, I think it depends on your family, who you have at home, what your community is like, what your pod, your people, your group of friends are like. And, those are all really good conversations to have with your comfort group about, hey, I got another person vaccinated. How are you guys? What are you guys doing? How are you guys feeling about this? And having conversations about it. But, but they are considered fully vaccinated, just like you as a grown up. So, yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question here from a parent, and she would like to know, should I keep my children away from summer camps until they are vaccinated?
So schools are we've seen over the past, year that schools are really safe for kids. This virus is not transmitting in school settings. They have done an amazing job for the most part at keeping kids in a mask. Masks work. They are a source control of the germs. So they are, it's really when kids are getting the spread in family settings, community settings, going off to, family events or, other outdoor not other community settings. Outdoor is probably pretty safe. And I think a lot of summer camps are still going to have some rules in place about that. So I think you have to see what that camp is like and kind of think about that in the context of your family. Do you have a very high risk individual at home that can't be vaccinated? And all of those things. And sometimes your family doc, your pediatrician are really good people to talk about this with, because they know you, they know your family, and can really help you to make that choice. But I think that in most situations, in school settings and in these more regimented summer camp settings, there's rules, and those rules we have seen have helped keep kids safe from COVID. So.
And I'm not sure whether or not I asked you this. If a child has had COVID, should they still get vaccinated? And if they have COVID, how soon after? Like if they recently got it, how soon after can they get this?
Yeah, this is a question adults ask a lot, and right now the current guidance from the CDC is that they should get vaccinated. This is an evolving area of understanding and research. And right now the message is that they should, although it's very rare that someone will get COVID twice. It does happen. And there is, we believe, potentially a longer lasting or a more robust. Robust means lots of other ways that you're protected beyond just, the immunity that you may have gotten from your initial infection. So the message from the CDC is still, yes, you should get a vaccine, even if you've had COVID. You should get the series. That could change at some point, but right now that's what we know. And the recommended time frame is to wait until they're at least out of isolation. So if you get COVID, you're 10 days isolated away from other people, at least to be outside of that window so you don't pass it to unvaccinated folks at a vaccine clinic. But beyond that, there's not another reason you have to wait. That's a big myth that's out there. Like you have to wait 90 days. You don't have to. You're very likely having a good amount of protection for those 90 days. So it's okay if you wait, but you don't have to. You're not going to feel, you shouldn't feel worse or different from your vaccine if you're at day 30 versus day 120. So, really if it's available to you, you're out of isolation, you're able to get it, do it.
Okay. And for those parents who are unsure right now of where to take their children to get vaccinated, who should they call?
So, Ding, 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 neighborhood family practice. We're super happy to help vaccinate, even if you're not our patient. We just believe so much in this vaccine and protecting our community. And we know at NFP, we really strive to serve the people in our neighborhood. Those are families that might be living in poverty, struggling for other reasons, people of, so many different backgrounds and races and languages spoken. And we really want to make sure that everybody has the same access to this vaccine. So, we are a really good source of information and a place to get the vaccine for everyone. But you can also check with your child's doctor or medical provider. Certain pharmacies do have the availability to vaccinate this age group. In some other instances, they weren't doing this age group, but they are now. So, local pharmacies are also a place. Some schools have partnered with vaccine clinics and have started them at their school. So that's also something, is to ask around at school if that's an option. And then, of course, local public health departments are also available to do these vaccines. So there's lots of options. And, we are doing our best to have evening hours here, weekend hours. We know parents are busy and working, and, we really want to try to have lots of options available for people to be able to get in.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for answering all these questions.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah, it's always a concern. What do I do for my children? What's the best thing to do for my child and keep them safe?
Yeah. And, we know vaccines work. We don't have polio. We don't have rampant measles outbreaks. When vaccination rates go down, we do. But, not polio, but measles. But, so this is something that, vaccines work, and, we have trusted vaccines in other aspects. The data is there. There's lots of information about these vaccines. And this age group is really important to helping to slow the spread of the virus in our community, to protect those younger kids. We vaccinated older people because they were the ones getting sick and dying from COVID. Lots of people feel like, my kid's not going to get that sick. Why do I have to do this? When we mentioned that's not always the case. There's some kids that do end up in the hospital. There are some kids who have unfortunately died from COVID and the complications of COVID in this age group, and younger ages as well. And we know they're an important, group that is contributing to community spread. So, this group they have so many different reasons to get vaccinated, not just because bad things can happen to them, but because they're members of families and communities and schools, and we all, they all want to get back to normal too. So this is one really important piece. So I hope parents will consider it. I know it's hard as a mom. I know it's difficult to think through that. But talk to people who have done the research, who understand the science. Make sure you're looking at reputable sources of information, because we all get stuck in rabbit holes. Sometimes people will send me stuff and I'm like, where did you see that? I got to read this. And I'm like, oh, that's just not right. So there are so many things out there on the internet for lots of reasons that are just wrong. And that puts us in danger, that we're getting information that's not accurate, that can't protect us. So, always make sure you're looking at good sources, talk to a medical provider, look for it in multiple places where it really makes sense, that you're seeing something more than once in the information. And we are here. You can check us out at nfpmedcenter.org. We have some online scheduling options. You can call us at 216-281-0872. And we had our first Pfizer vaccine clinic for kids last week, and it was awesome. We had lots of kids come by for that. And we're vaccinating every day at one of our health centers, with the Moderna vaccine for people 18 and older. We have some Johnson & Johnson vaccine available as well. And we hope that we'll have another Pfizer clinic coming up soon. So if you're interested, call us and we'll make it happen for you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Melanie, for taking some time to talk with us.
Yes. Thank you, Vadi, for all your great questions. Thank you, everybody out there, for watching and being interested in this. We will see you soon.
Bye-bye.